back by popular demand. This is the Turnbucklepad Podcast on YouTube.com. Respect wrestling or get out. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and people around the world, welcome back to the Turnbucklepad Podcast, Season 2. And as you already know, we're working exclusively with Warzone Wrestling based out of North Carolina. We're spending this season getting to speak with everybody that's part of the company, from the smallest little position to the biggest position. We like to hear opinions and experiences from all walks of life in wrestling. Today, for all you ladies out there, I'm bringing to you today a very special female wrestler from Warzone Pro Wrestling. I want you to welcome my guest and the first lady of this season, the sexy young cannibal, Savanah Evans. Savanah, thanks for coming on.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
Not a problem. How's the wrestling business treating you?
I mean, it's easy to say so far so good, but I mean, 2017 has been good so far. I just came off of a weekend of working for Big Time Wrestling, so this weekend has been busy, but you can never complain being busy. I guess that's the objective here, right?
Yeah, this is a business you want to be busy in.
Exactly.
Being busy is actually a blessing, isn't it? Not everybody really gets a chance to get out there unless they're really putting in the work.
Yes, exactly.
So, I understand you've been in the business for about 3 years now. You know, was it all you expected, or was it surprising? I mean, how did you feel when you walked in pursuing this dream?
Oh man, I don't even think I can remember like what my expectations were at first. Coming into wrestling, I just knew that it was something that I had wanted to try and I wanted to do, and I felt like I had put it off for too long. I told myself, let me finish college first, and I just kind of dragged my feet through college, and I eventually graduated, and then, some more time had passed, and I'm like, no, I need to go ahead and go ahead first with wrestling. So I knew a few of the guys that trained at the High Spots Wrestling School run by George South. So I came by one night and I watched, a session of wrestling, and I'm like, okay, this is it. Like, this is what it's going to be like. And I just went ahead and signed up from there. And I think it's 3 years to this week, actually, since I signed up. And it's just been great. I don't know what my expectations were. I knew it was going to be a lot of hard work. And I knew most people, especially women, I think they want to get into wrestling earlier. I know with women, sometimes their timeline is a little bit shorter wrestling than men, and most of the guys get in at a younger age. And I was coming in, I think, at the time I was 27, so I'm like, I'm going to have to go every day, and I'm going to have to, work hard at this. I, practice make perfect in my head, so I know I'm going to have to go hard because I had a lot of catching up to do. But it's been great for me, a lot of experiences, and I think only recently told myself, things don't always go perfect, but take the time to enjoy, the present, to enjoy the journey and what you're going through.
Yeah, very true, very true. What pushed you to get into wrestling? What made you like it?
I mean, like a lot of wrestlers, watching it at a younger age. I actually didn't start watching wrestling until I was about 12, and I think that was about 98, if I'm dating myself here.
That was a good year.
But it just, the big characters attracted me. Originally my dad had, he wanted to sit down and watch wrestling with me, and I wasn't really super interested. I think I would watch for a minute, and then I'd, get up and do something else. And it wasn't really until, I think one time I was at my grandfather's house, and my uncles were watching wrestling, and he was watching wrestling. My dad was watching wrestling. I want to say it was an episode of WCW, and the only thing I remember really, I think Disco Inferno was on, and maybe Booker T later in the night. But I just, I got hooked. The way it was, just everything was so grand. They had the pyros and big characters, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. I've never seen anything like this before, and then I did get hooked on watching WWF, and I loved The Rock, and I had to tune in every week to see what The Rock was going to do next because he was always so outlandish, and I think I just told myself, like, this is something I want to try. You know, at first, I wasn't really drawn to the female characters that were on the show, but as like the years went by, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, that's cool. You know, I wish I could do that, and then that turned into I want to do that, and you know, I had to jump in and make it happen.
Yeah, very true. And you are correct. At that time when you were watching, yeah, I mean, the women's division in women's wrestling was just starting to really start to evolve, and I think that's when you had girls like Molly Holly, Trish Stratus, Lita, Victoria. You had like a handful of all those who were, I think, the founding fathers that paved the way for women wrestlers today. And I know there's a history beforehand, but what do you think?
Yeah, I want to say at the time it was a lot of, I want to say Sable was champion at the time.
Yeah. Miss Jackie.
And I think, yeah, they had, like Jacqueline was around doing her thing, and I wasn't, even at the time, even though they were doing really cool things, I wasn't just super attracted to what the women were doing on the show. I was just, you know, oh, what is The Rock doing? You know what I mean? Like, what is he doing this week? Or what's Ken Shamrock up to? Or, you know, like all these different characters. And like I said, eventually, as the years went on, I'm like, oh, well, you know, this women's wrestling is pretty cool. And I think, especially right now in wrestling, women's wrestling, I think is like the biggest, most attractive it's been in a long time, if even ever.
I think ever. I think you're right on that one.
Yeah, I would definitely say those ladies like Molly and Victoria did, pave the way and open a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, were some of those your inspirations as far as becoming a female wrestler? Were those some workers that you looked up to, or did you go back further in history?
As far as women's wrestlers, I would definitely say an inspiration, coming up watching would have been Lita, probably my biggest, because she had the tomboy look when she was with the Hardys, and I related to that. Like in middle school, I was one with like the Jinko pipe jeans, and like I dressed like a boy because younger growing up, I was a tomboy. So I really liked her. I wouldn't say I would model my in-ring style after her. I'm definitely more of like a ground base. I don't really leave my feet a lot, but just seeing her and what all she could do, like that was pretty amazing to me.
Yeah, she was definitely a credit to the business. She was the first female, I think, that actually had a luchador style to her.
Yeah, definitely the first one on TV that had that lucha style. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was great seeing little things like that. We talk a lot in the show about like the differences and when wrestling kind of took it downhill, then came back up and went downhill again. Where do you think women's wrestling got affected when all this started?
Oh man, in my opinion, wrestling was starting to get hot again. Obviously during the Attitude Era, and it started out, I think, slow for the women because they were transitioning from being, valets and being eye candy to, hey, we're going to give you guys a match, like that kind of thing. I want to say it got big with, like, transitioning from women like, Sunny and Sable to women, like you said, like Molly, and then Trish and Lita came in later, and they transitioned into, like, full-time competitors and that kind of thing. I would say Attitude Era started it, I guess, for women being bigger in the company, and then just throughout the years it kind of evolved into a lot of technical women going out there and just having great matches.
Yeah, it's really great to see the women's division go as far as it has. What do you think about how far some of the companies were taking it by starting to doing women's cage matches? This seems to be a new thing, and they're doing it a lot more.
Yeah, I think I was not blown away, but just surprised that they had a women's cage match on TV. I want to say it was maybe Victoria and Molly in WWF. They had one, way back, and I was just like, that's crazy that they had this on TV and that people want to see it. Because I want to say for the main part, the guys are always saying like, oh, we don't want to see women bleeding, or we don't want to see this, that, and the other. And I think that's such a big thing, and I think that's why like women's MMA wasn't really. I guess like the women weren't really showcased in like UFC for a while. It's like the thought process was we don't want to see women like punching each other in the face. We don't want to see women with like bruises or bleeding and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day, one of my friends, James Drake, he's a wrestler down here also, and also part of the Warzone family. He was saying that in his opinion, women's wrestling got big when Ronda Rousey got big in UFC. That he thinks there's a direct correlation with that, but
I don't know about that.
Around this time and like a few years ago, just there's a big turning point in women in sports, just in general, like a big movement.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, Ronda Rousey though, she didn't really start coming around till much later though. I mean, women's wrestling has been evolving for years.
Oh yeah, no, I just meant for the past few years because I think it's huge right now. Women's wrestling is huge right now, but I think. As far as going back to the question about, women having cage matches or, that kind of thing, I think even like the smaller indie companies are doing it now. And I think people are just trying to see where they can push things, like where they can take women's wrestling. It always opens up different opportunities and, different avenues for everybody.
Do you think that's a good thing for the women's division of pro wrestling, or do you think it's a bad thing? I mean, some people might not see it so kindly, and some people might think it's really good, but where do you stand on it?
I'm kind of under the umbrella that any publicity is good publicity. If they're talking about it, that could be great, but then again, in some cases, like I am not bashing it by any means, but I'm not a fan of death matches.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, they have girls out there having death matches, and it gets people talking, like, is this something that you're interested in, or is it something you're not interested in? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can understand that. Besides those things, this business, it's just one of those things, like I said, when you get people talking, and I think it has a lot to do with how unique this business is, because what you do in that ring and the story you tell has such an impact and such a connection on the crowd.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, once they're connected and they're following what you're trying to tell them, you can go anywhere with it.
Yeah. What's we like to hear funny stories, and it's funny experiences when people are in the business. Think you got a story or two you can share with us?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not so great at recalling specific like times or matches. Sometimes like on the spot, it's something you just have to think about. Like, oh, well, what was a good funny spot, or what was this? But I just really like to focus on the journey. Like, the journey is great for me. I'm trained by George South, so he has, I don't want to say a different outlook than other people, but he has like the old school mentality. So he, teaches us like that old school, like the basics, like you have to have your basics down. And he's just a great mentor, and he's always like funny to have around. He's always got a funny story usually, but yeah, I can't recall any funny stories right now off the top of my head.
There's always next time. You mentioned earlier though that Mr. South, he has the traditional way at looking at things and doing things. And a lot of us still say to this very day that it was traditional days that made wrestling the greatest. When you came into the business, were you seeking or hoping to have someone with a traditional background or someone with a modern age background to teach you?
I think I came in wanting just the best training that I could possibly get, no matter, where it came from. And luckily, I'm at a place where I can get traditional training and hammer those basics in, because really anything you're going to do, it boils down to your basics. But I also, on the other hand, get a modern touch in my teaching as well. Also at the High Spots Wrestling School, we get George South, but you also get Caleb Conley, who's currently with Impact Wrestling, and we had Cedric Alexander for a long time until he was signed, and then we also have the Man Scout Jake Manning. So I get, a little new school and a little of that older tradition as well. And it's great that it's, you can just kind of blend it together, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's understandable. I mean, I think in this business nowadays, you have to be open to both sides of it for training. You can't just pick one side.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Well, we got a question we ask a lot of our fans, or our fans want to know. And you being the first lady this season, what advice would you give to a young lady who would like to get into the business, or someone who's thinking about getting into the business?
I would say if you're even thinking about it, or if you think you're ready to take the step to get involved in wrestling, just go 100%. Don't take your days off. Don't say, well, oh, I'll do that next time. Like, go 100%, because if you don't, there's always another girl that is going 100%, and you may lose your opportunity. But you always want to be the best that you can be. So go 100% is my number one, I guess, piece of advice I would give. Definitely find a school that is credible. You're going to find places that, that maybe you have a hard time to afford because of their expenses and everything. But I would say do your research. Like, don't go to school just because it's cheaper than another school. Like, find your way, ask around, do your research on the internet, and find a good school that has a good reputation.
Very true. Very true. Did you have to go through that a lot when you were coming in trying to find a proper school, or was it pretty simple and easy for you?
Again, I want to say I got lucky. I was already living in Charlotte, and the High Spots Wrestling School was just 21 minutes away from my house. So some people do. They drive, 1 and 2 hours to train, every night. But luckily, I just had that 20-minute drive, basically down the street. But, I did put some research into it. Before I moved back to Charlotte, I was living in Colorado, and there were less wrestling schools out there. But when I was out there, I found the High Spot Training School online. I was like, man, we're about to move back to Charlotte. I can always, I can go train there. And I looked up, what reviews and what people had to say, and how much the pricing was, and that kind of thing.
Understandable. Well, Savanah, if fans wanted to follow you and keep tabs on upcoming events and whatnot, how could fans find you?
I like to make it known that I have pretty much all of the major social medias covered. Anyone that would like to get any announcements about my upcoming matches or, anything about that, I am on Twitter as Savanah Evans, the letter N and the letter V. I eventually want to try to contact Twitter and get that name cleared so I can just be Savanah Evans on Twitter. But right now it's Savanah Evans NV. That's where you can find me on Twitter. On Instagram, I am Savanah Evs, so it's Savanah and the letters E-V-S. And then I'm also on Facebook, again, as Savanah Evs, Savanah E-V-S on Facebook.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, fans, I really hope you enjoyed our time we had today with the sexy young cannibal herself. And for all you young ladies out there, we pursue your dreams like she said. You may see a lot of men going through this, and some people may consider it a male-dominated sport, but that's been proven wrong, and it's been happening quite a lot. So, like Miss Evans said, do your homework and hit it 100%. Till then, fans, this wraps up our time with Miss Evans. Anything else you want to add to this, Miss Evans?
Oh man, I feel like we could have gone another 20 minutes. I feel like we covered a lot of good stuff. I'm really happy with this, and just to add on to the last bullet point last conversation. Yeah, any women that want to get involved, I think women in wrestling is obviously a great thing. You may have your doubts and you have your questions, but you got to push all that aside. And if it's something you really want to do, I feel like there's room for everyone in wrestling. I know some people have different opinions on that, but I really feel like there's room for everyone in wrestling.
That's true, because there's a little bit of something for everyone in this business. You don't always have to be a wrestler to be a part of the business.
Yeah.
Well, all right, fans. This concludes our time today. I'm Mike Stover, your host of the Turnbucklepad Podcast Season 2. This has been my guest today, the sexy young cannibal, Savanah Evans. Till then, fans, we're out.